Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for 5-minute caregiver tips. My name is Kelsey Lauschen. Today we're going to be talking about why boundaries matter as a caregiver. So whether you are an existing caregiver or moving into a new role as a caregiver, it's really important to start out with understanding boundaries and learning how to set them. So let's take a look. Before we get into understanding your own boundaries, we have to understand what they are. So boundaries don't cure relationship problems. They are side effects of having a healthy self-esteem and low neediness levels. So they work in two ways. One is that they help to create emotional health. And two, they're created by people with emotional health. And we know boundaries need to begin early on in life. People need to understand what's mine, what's yours, and not blur those lines. And we see that many times in caregiving as caregivers sometimes overextend themselves and create dependencies from the person they're caregiving for, who then starts to rely on us for everything. And then we burn ourselves out. So it's really important before you get started to set those boundaries. So let's start with you and take an assessment of yourself. Do you feel like people take advantage of you or use your emotions for their own gain? Do you ever feel like you're constantly having to save those people close to you and fix their problems? Are you more invested or attracted to someone than you should be for how long you've known them? Like that person you meet and you feel like you've known them for 20 years and you fall in love with them. Are your intimate relationships either amazing or horrible? Maybe even break up and reconcile, the back and forth, in and out? Do you defend yourself for things you believe are not your fault? So boundaries also are about saying things and not having to explain them away. Like no is a complete sentence. 6, regular and consistent and pointless fighting, even with just one person, because no is enough. So yes to 2, you probably need to be looking at your setting and maintaining about some boundaries and what's challenging you the most. Yes to most, you probably need to be looking at some of these emotional issues that are extending into why there is difficulty with maintaining and setting these boundaries. So good assessment tool to just begin with and to look again at your own boundaries if you are a caregiver. So what do healthy boundaries look like? It's not taking responsibility for taking responsibility for your own actions and emotions, not taking responsibility for other actions or emotions. Boundaries are not an attempt to make someone do something. They are not about getting another person to do something. And I commonly hear that if I do this, it will make this person do that. No, it's about setting my own boundaries and then people learning that they need to respond differently to me because I set my boundary. So I know where my boundaries end and yours begin. So there's no blurring there. So boundaries about me getting clear inside of me. So poor boundaries typically are a sign of lack of respect and lack of self-respect. So not only is a person extending themselves into our life, but that's out of disrespect from them, but also that we don't know how to stop and start with all these other people in our lives. So there's two types of poor boundaries. They usually come in two forms. Those who take too much responsibility for the emotions and actions of others, because people with boundary issues have a tendency to get into other people's lives where they don't belong. And those who expect others to take too much responsibility for their own emotions and actions. So again, you need to assess when I am a caregiver, am I overextending myself? Am I saying yes to too many things? Do I need to ask for help? And also understand that you don't know everything. And it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to ask for help. Many times these types end up in relationships with one another. So it's not unusual to see in caregiving that the caregiver and the caregivee both have poor boundaries. So even in other relationships in your life. So people with high self-esteem have strong personal boundaries. So it's important to really work on these things again, if you are an existing caregiver or moving into caregiving. So thanks for joining me, and hopefully you'll come back again and see more caregiving tips. Thanks, everybody.